Chris here from Monument Sound. It's 2025 and I'm finally back trying to get back into doing some videos. I'm going to start doing a new series of my mix templates. I know I've done some in the past. I'm going to get rid of those actually on the YouTube site and start off with some new ones. I'm going to talk about a application that I started using a couple weeks ago called Forte-AI. It is a mix prep tool that I think is going to be a really good solution for people that are doing a lot of mix prep and getting into their sessions a lot quicker. Kind of along the lines of the SoundFlow process, but this one does it right at the beginning. And it's an Italian company, so a little bit about them. I've got some stuff in the feeds about this and decided to give it a test, and I was like, this is incredible for what it is. It just speeds up the time. They were a little slow at first replying to my emails, but then they realized that it got stuck in a junk mail or something like that, spam folder, and they apologized and said, hey, we're sorry. And I ended up, after their communication, I ended up buying the license. It was a €300, so a little over $300 license for a lifetime license versus this subscription service. So I got in on that because I figured they're a small company, they're in the development phase of this thing, and it's actually really pretty cool. So I wanted to kind of talk about it, show what it does, and get into it a little bit on how I'm using it, and just show how fast it is. It does some pretty cool stuff, and I know that they're in the process. There's a couple of us that have talked with them, and they're in the process of always improving this thing. Being a small startup company, it looks like, I know they're trying to get this thing better. So we've given them, some inputs and ideas, and they're super open for that. But the company, it's forte-ai.com, and it's not an AI mixing tool. It is a mix prep tool. And it opens up like this. You can actually open this application and then start from scratch and open a new session. It will prompt and open Pro Tools and give you the whole prompt window and everything and set it up. And then it comes to this menu. Now, the default has a bunch of standard. This is my template, but I have a loaded up template here that I made because their default one has a bunch of different categories: drums, percussion. I broke it up a little bit and moved some things into the order that I wanted to come into the session with. So if you had the main drums one, all the drums were kind of alphabetical. And so I decided to make kick, snare, toms, drums, etc., and just kind of streamline it for what I needed. So you can make your own categories. You can see, like in the strings instruments, there's 19 of them. So you can say, all right, I just want to keep the banjo out and, undo it and move it somewhere else and put it into other guitars or whatever you want to call it. So you can kind of customize this to your choice. You can say, instead of sitar, I want it to come in as sitars, and it will tell you, you can do all that and change the naming convention of what you want. So that's one cool feature. Also, it has color code, so it bases itself on Pro Tools, so you can go in there and color code it to whatever you want. We've got the routing over here. That's in a different window, but I'll show that in a second. But you can absolutely go in here and set up the routing and do it whatever it does. And it does look at your existing session. So if you have an Atmos session up, it will look at that routing. I've actually got a preset made for Atmos where I bring it in and I can set it into my routing for that type of session. The other cool feature is it has strip silence, which I leave it at the default, which gives us a pretty good end and start pad. You can obviously tweak this to whatever you want to do if you've got your own specific ones, but I'm just keeping it for this demo at the standard one here. And then the great one is this stereo to mono. We all know we get those files that come in from Logic or whatever where everything is stereo. Your kick drum stereo, your drums, everything is guitar, everything is all stereo. So this will go through and analyze that and say, hey, this is a mono file. Let's move it to a mono file. So there's a program I've used for probably 6 or 7 years at least now called Stereo Monoizer. And it does the same thing with a couple different options as well. I've asked them if they can implement that for this where we could clip gain. I think that would be a great feature if you could come in here and say, all right, I want everything for my drums to be -10 or whatever. You can have a feature all the way down the line here where you could do that. So that's kind of a cool thing that we've asked for. I've asked personally for a multiple output capability because I like to do parallel drum routing for my kick drum. So I'd love to have the ability to, go here, select bus, and then select my kick and my drum at the same time and just get all that set up from the get-go. But anyway, so once we're in this thing, We get it all set up. I'm going to say confirm because I've got it. There's some other things too, by the way, the global setting. You can make your track height when it comes in medium, small, large, whatever you want. I'm doing medium. And so we're going to go from there. So I'm going to say confirm. So now is where the magic happens. We go in here. I've got my template, and if you select this guy, it's going to put it inside of that folder in the first one available. I uncheck everything on mine. I am going to go and blow my session up a little bit because I've noticed that I had it really, really small. So all of my tracks were tiny when it was bringing the import in. So I'm going to bring stuff out to about, it looks good like that. Probably we'll leave it like this. So 5-minute song. So when we come back into Forte, we're going to say input audio files. And I've got some tracks here. I've already worked this song, but I'm just going to show it for demonstration purposes. But basically you select all the tracks and you hit choose. And what it's doing now is analyzing the tracks and saying, okay, here's your kick in, kick out. It's renaming some stuff, like you can see here, my snare bottom got renamed to snare. You can correct that. You can absolutely go in there and tell it, I need a snare bottom, but right now it's just got snare. So snare 57, tom 1, tom 2, tom 3, tom 4, drums, drum mono, so on and so on and so on. Come down to your bass, it's got your bass, it's routing it to the bass, it's the color, you have your lead vocal, your backup vocals, all your stuff. So everything is routed the way that I want it to be routed. I'm gonna go in, you can see that some of my guitars were relabeled. That's just a setting that I need to correct for my guitars, which I can do that another day, I'm not worried about it. But you can go in here, like if I know that this is a Les Paul, I can select this guy and I can say Les Paul or GTR Les Paul, and I can come down here and say that's, check guitar left, check guitar right. We know that these two are the same thing. So we can go and rename all those. I'm not going to do that right now, but just know that you can go in and customize this before you hit input or import into Pro Tools. So everything is fine for now. I'm going to say set my routing outputs. So we've got all this in, and we're going to hit import. It's going to bring it down into buckets, right? So our drums, our kick will be first. You can see I had that one selected up top, so that's where it's going to put it. So wherever it highlights is where the tracks get dumped in at first. So you can easily move those, obviously, but I like to have it on the right. Obviously I clicked on the bus folder and it's doing that. So you can see it's loading them all in, it's color coding them. There's my bass, here's my lead vocal. It's going to do the background vocals next with their bucket of 4 or whatever's in there, and then all the guitars will come in. Then it's going to go back up to the top and do the output routing, and we'll see the kick drums go, and then all the drums will be routed to drums. There they are, all the vocals, lead vocals, and then background vocals, and everything down the line. Then this is the really cool part and the amazing time saver. It goes in, it's going to clip gain everything out, or not clip gain, sorry, strip silence all of this stuff out based on that preset setting. And what's nice is if it goes in and it doesn't do it, there's an icon at the top for the application that lets you go back in and highlight the track, and it will give you another option to open strip silence just on that track, so you can actually pop this window open, figure it out, and run it again on multiple tracks if needed, or for just individual ones. So you can see it's cleaning up all the bass spots and the solo spots and everything else, and just making it all nice and clean. And again, it's 318 milliseconds at the start. And that's it, you're done. So you keep working and close this guy out. We'll clear the memory on this guy, close out the session. And so now all of your tracks are in this bucket here where I know I'm gonna have to move them. This is another feature I've asked for that if they can work, which would be fantastic, is to move it into routing folders. I've got a lot of routing folders now for my mix bus and my aux returns for mixing. So if they had this moved to routing folders, it would be like the most amazing thing ever, because then it just dumps everything in and your session is super organized and ready to rumble. And then you close it down and there's your session. That is my entire session with all those tracks in it, all bundled up. That's it, guys. So Forte-AI.com is the company. You get, I think, a 14-day demo with it if you want to try it out. I highly recommend it. I installed it, started working on it. Probably took 10 minutes to get it to where I wanted it to do things. It does pull up the session each time you load it, you know, when it's here, you can say current session. If you went to the routing, if I uncheck it, it's going to be generic routing. But if you check the routing, it pulls up your routing IO and it maps to it and pulls everything in, and then you're good to go. And it's going to close it out here in a second, and all of your routing is there. So now when you try to import more data, you just set the routing and away it goes, and it knows the colors and everything else. So check it out, highly recommend it. I'm going to keep going with this series, so stay tuned. I'm going to talk about my mix template on how I'm doing everything with busing and stems and VCAs, and why I'm doing this and why I'm trying to do that. And it's just my way of working. Might not be perfect. I've been doing it for probably 10 years with this specific type of template and the routing of how everything is, and it works great with in the box and summing mixing. So stay tuned for that. Thanks again for coming back and watching, and we'll talk later. Take care.